The divorce rate among families that have children with a disability is over 50%.
Think about what a real hug or a real kiss is. And the Gottmans actually define this. That's how long it takes your neurology to relax with each other. Now, a real kiss they define as
how can couples protect or even rebuild their intimacy when caregiving feels like it's just overwhelming and all-consuming?
we're here because we saw a future together and wanted to create a family.
What are some of the biggest issues that you see with couples that lead them down the path of getting a divorce?
One of the biggest challenges that couples are going to face, especially when they have these extra pressures, is that
Welcome back to another episode of Get Unpuzzled, the podcast where we break down barriers, open up conversations, and bring together families, advocates, and experts who understand the journey of raising and supporting individuals with disabilities. I'm your host, Whitney Price, and today we're diving into a topic that's often overlooked, the personal side of parenting a child with a disability. We're talking about relationships, connection, and the challenges that couples face behind closed doors. Joining us today is Dr. Cheri Timko, a couples and sex therapist with over 20 years of experience in counseling and therapy. She's helped thousands of neurodiverse couples strengthen their communication, rebuild connection, and reach their full potential. Today's conversation gets real. We'll be discussing the tough stuff, divorce, intimacy, and the emotional struggles that can surface while navigating life and caring for a child with a disability. So sit back, take a breath, and let's dive in. Dr. Timko, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to have this conversation. You have over 20 years of experience. Can you talk a little bit about what got you into counseling and therapy?
I became a couples counselor after I first worked with, early in my career, I started working with teenagers. And I loved working with teenagers. They are so interesting and they have such unique ways of looking at the world. I really enjoyed that work. But a lot of the work was helping them find where they had control in their life and then helping them be patient because a lot of them were kind of waiting until they could, reach an age where they could make a lot of decisions for themselves. So then I moved to couples therapy, then I moved to family therapy, which was better because then the parents were in the room, we could make a bigger impact. I could help the teenagers say what they needed to and understand where the parents were coming from. And that had a bigger impact. And then I started doing couples work. And what I realized is that I could make an impact for all the kids in the family, and they didn't even need to be there. So I really do love couples work. It's challenging and fascinating, and couples come up with the best unique agreements between them. But the heart of it has always been that I not only can impact the couple, but I can impact the kids and really shift how their lives go.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing outlook. And you're right. If you can impact the parents, then everything will trickle down from there. And I know that you're certified in the Gottman method and relationship styles. For those who are unfamiliar, can you kind of walk us through what the Gottman method is and why it's so widely respected in the couples counseling community?
The Gutmans have done the best research that exists on couples. They have looked at 40,000 couples over 40 years. And they have looked at everybody from what they call the masters to the disasters and everybody in between. So I really gravitate towards it because it is research based. What happened is their research revealed that there are certain characteristics that couples who have really good relationships all have in common. And so the work using the Gottman method really is focused on making sure that the couples have those skills, that those ways of thinking, so that they can relate to one another. Um, I particularly like it because it's very present focused, at least at least the way it looks in my office. It's very present focused. So we take the problems that are happening right now and figure out how to get the couple to work better as a team. And sometimes the past comes in, and sometimes we definitely do have emotional conversations, but it starts with where we are, what's going on, what's the interaction, what's the pattern, and how we can adjust that. So for me, that feels very strength based about nobody's broken here. Nobody needs a personality change or an overhaul. This is about figuring out how you live peacefully with your partner. One of the reasons that the Gottmans have gained so much respect and so much people know them is that they are able to predict whether a couple will get divorced within 5 years to like a 95% rate. And one of the things that they look at are the four horsemen. And this has to do with how they talk to each other, and how much negativity there is. Um, every couple can have some negativity in their relationship. They can have some examples of the four horsemen, but it has to be low level and they have to repair it. So the way that Gottman's changed this conversation was saying these are the things that predict divorce. You can measure them, you can change those patterns and those interactions.
The divorce rate among families that have children with a disability is over 50%. Do you think something like the Gottman method would really impact and help bridge the gap where it could be needed?
I think that one of the strengths of the Gottman method is the fact that it is present focused. It's like, what is the challenge that you're facing now? I imagine that a lot of the couples that are part of your organization, one of the main things that they're facing is just not having enough resources. We see this in couples with really little kids, is they go from having enough time, money, and energy to like the kids will take every bit of resource that there is that they have access to. So when you've got any sort of extra complication, extra need, that drain on the couple is just going to be that much higher. So part of figuring out what they need to do is like figuring out how they navigate not having enough of those resources. I tend to think of them as time, money, and energy. There's probably some other resources in there as well, but there isn't enough time, there isn't enough energy, there isn't enough money.
And I think a lot of our families really do realize that we are the biggest teammates that we have, and we are the ones that are going to be supporting our children or for the remainder of the child's life. So it's so impactful and important that we really do have these tools and techniques to use to be able to kind of work through any of these struggles or challenges that we might be going through at the time, which can be, oh gosh, anything from financial struggles to work related issues. And like you touched on, not having enough time. Time is so valuable, but for a lot of us, for caregivers, your child takes up your entire day and sometimes night. And that is one of the biggest challenges that we face, not just in our home, but I know within our community. One of the other unique certifications that you have is being a sex therapist. How does sex therapy differ from the traditional couples counseling?
It does, but it shouldn't. Um, Couples sex therapy should be what good couples therapy is. But there's a lot of reasons why couples therapists don't talk that much about sex. And so you end up with this hodgepodge of some Couples therapists deal with that pretty well, and others don't. From a uh, from a theoretical standpoint, the couples therapy and sex therapy have always been completely different in training. Like you would think that getting trained as a couples therapist, there would have been a significant amount of sex therapy involved, but there wasn't. When I work with couples around sex, a lot of the things that we're dealing with are how to navigate differences, how to deal with differences in interest, how to make enough time and space for their intimate relationship, and how to deal with when things don't go right. Like aging has a really big impact on every couple's relationship. And so you can kind of deal with what do we do when things aren't working right early, or you can wait until there's a problem, or you can wait until aging comes in. But every couple has to navigate the fact that their sex probably is not going to look like it did when they first got together.
Oh, for sure. And we still go back to time. And then I go back even further and say energy has to have
Energy.
something to do with it. What are some of the misconceptions that people often have when it comes to sex therapy?
Oh, about sex therapy, they often think that they're going to be asked to do something that they don't want to, or the higher desire partner thinks that they're going to be told that they just have to do without, or the lower desire partner thinks that they're going to be forced to do things that they're not interested in doing. And then a lot of couples are just very uncomfortable talking about sex in general, not just with a third party, but with each other. It's very hard for them to just have an honest conversation about what they like, what they don't like, what builds their desire, what gives them the ick. Like, there's just a lot of things that it's better if a couple talks about.
Do you find that more males are more willing to come to sex therapy than they would just a traditional couples counseling session?
I don't know. I think that men are relieved if that is an issue that we're going to deal with, and they don't come to therapy believing that we're just going to work on communication skills and talk about the time that they forgot, the thing that they were supposed to do. So I do think that there is some more comfortability, but then you pair that with uh, the idea of it being something private and having to talk about it, then that kind of just still detracts from, wanting to come to therapy to talk about sex.
Do you find that if they are leading the conversation with sex as the front line, that it's easier to open up and discover issues that are lying beneath the surface?
I think it depends on the couple. Um, I think for a lot of couples, it's easier to start with other problems than to start there. And for a lot of couples, the other partner needs more connection, needs more affection so that they can feel close enough to be intimate. And so a lot of times we have to start somewhere else. Otherwise, um, I don't know, sex is just not something you can show up and be like, okay, I'm here. Sure, I haven't talked to you. I haven't related to you. I don't know what's going on in your life. Let's just get to it. And so whichever partner that is that needs more connection, we usually need to get them connected a little bit before they can get there. So, one of the things that a couple could do if they're in a situation where there just isn't enough time, energy, or money, and they're starting to get disconnected, is to make sure to have enough affection built into the day. And that can be like quick, that doesn't have to take much time. I'm sure that there are still going to be some barriers, but the more that you have that affection built in, then when you get some time, it's a shorter leap to actually being intimate with each other.
So, beyond sex, what are some of the biggest issues that you see with couples that cause them or lead them down the path of getting a divorce?
How they communicate is a really big one. And if they can improve their communication, then usually everything else starts to improve. Um, Beyond that, and this is related to the communication, when a couple has communication issues, they usually end up either arguing or having a lot of silence. And regardless of which of those they have, and sometimes they have both, sometimes it'll be both. Regardless of which they have, what they end up doing is having topics that they essentially put outside of the circle, issues that they can't resolve. So then they avoid those topics. So with communication issues also comes a problem of just having unsolved issues. And so helping them deal with, like, how do you make decisions about what to do next as a couple, with the kid, with intimacy, and then helping them be creative. Because one of the biggest challenges that couples are going to face, especially when they have these extra pressures, is they need to find solutions that other people aren't telling them. Like, you can go on TikTok and watch videos all day, and they're going to be like, this is how we solve this. Here's how we solve this. And really, a good relationship is finding that truly unique solution that maybe only works for the two of you, but is the thing that gets you from here to there and feel good about it. And that takes that creativity of, like, okay, let's look beyond what we're thinking might work and see what else is possible here.
I know you work with a lot of neurodiverse couples, not just couples, but even individuals who are neurodiverse, helping their neurotypical spouse really connect, grow, and communicate. Can you talk a little bit about what that experience has been like and some of the common struggles a neurodiverse couple would go through?
I think you can't talk about the struggles without talking about the ways that they're also really cool. Because, when you've got couples who have different neurodiversities, you also have couples who recognize that they need to solve problems. And so they can become master problem solvers. And when they throw out neurotypical expectations and they look for what's really going to work between them, that's where that creativity comes in. They also can be really good communicators if they understand where each other is coming from. So if you know that your partner is going to be straightforward, honest, and blunt and tell you what they really truly think, then that's a really amazing place to have good conversations. As long as you navigate what it feels like to hear some of the honest things. I couldn't want more for a couple than to have really, truly honest conversations about what they think and feel. So that can be a real strength, if you can kind of navigate some of the harder parts of that. So some of the challenges, they've really run the gamut. Um, they start with executive functioning, with sensory sensitivities, with how they process information. That's one I've been noticing a lot. Is often I have one partner who just is right, like thinking so fast, and the other partner is like, needs time to think and process and, like, think it through deeply before they're willing to move on, able to move on to the next concept. And there's nothing wrong with either of those, but you put those two together and say, all right, let's solve a problem. And if they aren't really aware of that difference in processing, then they end up with one getting really impatient and the other getting overwhelmed and, getting frustrated with each other because they're moving at a different speed. One of the things that became clear to me when I was working on my dissertation is that really every couple, each partner thinks very differently from the other. And regardless of what the labels are on each partner, or even there are no labels, that those are differences that need to be bridged. We're not trying to change those characteristics in either person, but they still need to be bridged. So whether you're talking about communication and one like straight to the point, brief telescope, and the other processes verbally. So they say 500 words where the other might say five. Like that's a difference that needs to be bridged where they understand and value that in each other and then find ways to communicate that work. In neurodiverse couples, you're going to see this same gamut of uh, different styles in how to work through an issue. You're going to have partners who really enjoy sitting down and talking through and really getting into the nitty gritty of it. You're going to have partners who quickly get overwhelmed and so need to take things in smaller chunks. You're going to have partners who, uh, regardless of how you broach the topic, they're going to feel personally attacked rather than trying to deal with an objective issue. You have those who will never bring up an issue because they're afraid that it will start an argument. And then, of course, you have different perceptions. So one partner looks at it this way, the other partner may look at it totally different. So one thinks there's a problem, the other one's like, there's no problem here. So, like, every kind of difference you can have, you're going to have in neurotypical couples, but also in neurodiverse couples. So all of those different things, like it's again, it's not about like changing the person, but it might be changing how they interact around this issue.
What about misconceptions around therapy in general? Do you think that we are still struggling as a society to really accept therapy and counseling? And do you see it leaning more one side of one sex versus the opposite sex?
The research shows that women bring up 90%, it's either 80 or 90% of the issues. So that's just a difference in how things are brought up. So definitely there's some gender differences where it might be more likely that the female partner would be asking for therapy. That's just a statistical number. That's not every couple. So I often have men who call who are initiating it for their partner as well. So it can go either way.
What's the overall misconception
Mm.
that we've created as a society around counseling and therapy in general?
There is still a lot of stigma around therapy. I think it's getting much better, but there still is this idea that you go to therapy when something's broken. Now, for couples, that poses a problem because it would be much better if they went to therapy when they notice there's a problem, not waiting until they've gone many cycles of the same problem and then try and, I say, clean up the messes that it caused. Couples actually have an additional problem. We've been talking about resources, and in order for a couple to go to couples therapy, they both have to have time at the same time. And so there's another barrier there for them getting the support that they need.
Time is always something that we struggle with, not just as parents, but adding the struggles that we have through our children on top of that seem next to impossible. And I know for our family, so much of our time is dedicated to Connor and his therapies and his medical appointments that we are often left putting our care to the side completely, and we neglect
Right.
our medical needs and our emotional needs.
So if you work on a problem for 15 minutes a week, and at the end of the month, or at the end of the all right, at the end of the month, you have worked on it for like an hour and a half. But if you work on it for 15 minutes for a year, you've put like 12 or 15 hours into solving that problem. And so just like putting a limit on how much time you can put into solving it, it's not a problem. Like you have the benefit of time because you're going to be together. So you don't have to fight it out. Just spend
Right.
15 minutes on it once a week and be like, is this better? No? Okay. What are we going to do to try and make it a little bit better?
Right. And then, gosh, if you could combine it with the 1 minute of physical touch and
Right.
a 7 second or even a 2 second kiss, something that is
A real
showing
kid.
that love. Yes. Yeah. There's so
You
many
could
little
even
things that we could be doing
you
better.
could start with you start your 15 minutes with a real hug, a real kiss, and a thank you, some sort of appreciation. Spend 15 minutes working on a problem and close it out with some real affection. And then you do that every week. I mean, 15 minutes, you might be able to get 15 minutes every day. You get 15 minutes every day, then you end up with like an hour and a half in the course of a week. And then that starts to compound really big. You would
Yeah.
solve that problem in a week or two or 15 minutes a day.
How can couples protect or even rebuild their intimacy when caregiving feels like it's just overwhelming and all consuming?
When a couple's relationship is working really well, the time that they spend together, the interactions that they have, feed the rest of the relationship. And we tend to think about like, all right, I haven't spent any time with my spouse. Now I need to get some energy to spend with them. And I think that's backwards. I think really prioritizing the things that make you feel energized with each other and making sure to have enough of them. So, for instance, if you feel more grounded, you feel more cared about when you share a hug, that is something that's fairly easy to slip in to the course of a day. And so making sure that you have enough of those things that are energizing so that instead of it being one more thing on your list, it's like, ooh, I get to spend a minute or two with you. I get to like look up at another adult and have a conversation where someone's paying attention to me. Like, I really like that, and prioritizing those so that you end up with more energy going back into these other things that feel like they're too hard. So that would be the first thing is just making sure that you have enough of those. It's amazing if you can prioritize some time with each other every week where you really can give each other that undivided attention. Um, Couples relationships go through seasons. Some of those seasons it's easier to do, some of it's harder. So trying to be creative to try and find that time. When kids are in school, sometimes adults can meet for lunch. They could take a couple of hours off and go spend it with each other. I do think it's interesting to think about what a real hug or a real kiss is. And the Gottmans actually define this, that a real hug is a 20-second hug because that's how long it takes for your neurology to relax with each other. So you don't have to count 20 seconds, but noticing what it feels like when your partner like relaxes in your arms. When you do that, you've just co-regulated. You've helped each other ground and share that emotional regulation with each other in a way that then helps you deal with everything else. Now, a real kiss they define as a kiss that lasts longer than 6 seconds. Now, if you think about that, a 6 second kiss, like this is not a peck. You're
Right.
actually committed to the kiss. Um, but that just having that intimate moment of saying, we are doing all of this because of that intimate connection. That's how we got, like, that's how all this started. That's what keeps us going, like, that intimate connection. And that even just a 6-second kiss once a day, or when you say hello or you say goodbye, making sure that that's a real kiss. Now, one of the challenges that couples get into is they start connecting affection with sex. And therefore, it feels like any sort of affection is a promise that they're going to be intimate later. And when they connect it that way, then it actually cuts down on the affection. So we need, like, thinking about it, like there has to be kind of a discussion or an understanding that this is so we feel connected. This is so we maybe are building like a runway towards being intimate, but that a real kiss is sharing that connection and intimacy. It's not sharing, it's not like a promise that later there's going to be something bigger happening.
What about trust? Trust issues are the number one reason for divorce. When you have a couple or an individual that has broken the other individual's trust, how in the heck do you repair that? Or are there different levels to the repair that have to be gone through?
Yeah, I think there's different dimensions of trust. Um, sure, there's can I trust you with other people, but there's also, you know, all kinds of other trust. There's can I trust you with our home? Can I trust you with our child? Can I trust you to listen to my opinion and take it seriously? Can I trust you to be there for me just because I say I need help? Can I trust you to follow through on your word? And so when we talk about broken trust, we really talk about all of those dimensions of trust, not just like, can I trust you to follow the boundaries that we put in place around our relationship? Um, so I think maybe I think about trust building differently because I know of all like there's all these dimensions to it. Because I think that every couple needs some repair tools that really work for them. Now, the most straightforward repair is a good apology. Now, it has to be a good apology. There are so many versions of really awful, awful apologies. And when you give a bad apology, it can be as hurtful as the thing that you did that you're trying to apologize for. So, like, really giving a good apology is important. But there's all kinds of other repair tools that can make a repair, and knowing which ones actually make a repair in your relationship between you and your partner, those are the ones that you need and need to use very often, frequently, to repair those things.
So I know that you've talked with hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals, couples. Can you think of any individual or couple in particular that you thought, okay, if they don't work on their relationship, it's going to end in divorce, but they did and they were able to overcome it? And how were they able to overcome that?
Yeah. Um, Couples come to me at all stages. I have worked with couples who were already divorced and helped them repair the relationship. So I know that there's an idea like there is a point when it's too late. And I don't know when that would be. Now, certainly couples reach a point where they say this is over and we're not going to try. But I don't know where that point is. What I know is that if they want to repair their relationship, they can. And really, from any issue. One of the things that we don't talk about that's hard to talk about is that you can't be with a partner and be close with them without them hurting you. They're going to let you down. They're going to miss something. They're going to not be paying attention when they need to. And this is why every couple needs some good repair tools. It isn't just once a trust has been broken in a big way, it's for all the times when you didn't read your partner well and you called it poorly, or you were thinking about something else and said something and it came out too sharp and it hurt your partner's feelings because you weren't attending to what was happening for them. This is a normal part of long-term relationships, but it does need to be repaired. It does need to be cleaned up. Otherwise, you see this mounting resentment, frustration, distrust, but it's a feature of the relationship. It's not unusual. I know it's also kind of terrible too, right?
Right. It is. And you think about it in those terms. Um, yeah, you love them so much. They're supposed to be your partner for life, but they can also cause the biggest impact on you in a negative way or even the deepest trauma. So it's difficult for sure. That's putting a lot of weight on both people
Yeah.
too. I know uh, for those that lack a lot of support, whether it be from friends, family, maybe their job, financial struggles, that it does put a ton of stress. So when you have that type of stress adding on to the list of everything else that we're already dealing with in life or whatever situation they may be, of course, how can you not have some type of problems or conflict? Dr. Timko, I want to take a real short break to hear a word from our sponsors. But when we come back, I also want to hear a little bit more about the amazing journey and all of the different couples that you've been able to support over the past 20 years. Unpuzzled Parents Connect was built on a foundation of two parents who were struggling. Imagine facing the challenges of parenting a child with autism without support, without answers, and without a community. That's the reality for too many families across West Virginia and the Mid-Ohio Valley. And that's exactly why Unpuzzled Parents Connect exists. We walk alongside the caregivers, offering guidance, emotional support, practical tools through our support groups, counseling sessions, and educational workshops. When families connect, everything changes. Isolation turns into understanding, and chaos gives way to hope. Your donation brings that hope to life. It helps us reach more families, expand vital programs, and ensure that no parent feels invisible or alone. Give today. Be the reason that a family finds strength, community, and peace of mind. For more information on our mission, you can visit our website at unpuzzledparentsconnect.com, or you can follow us on Facebook. You can help us continue the work that changes lives one family at a time. Thank you so much for giving, and thank you so much for supporting us.
Well, I've worked with all kinds of couples, and I have not ever met a couple that didn't have, first of all, things that annoyed each other, pet peeves that they, would stumble into, but then also being together. I've never met a couple that didn't have some really rough years and some things that happened that just were heartbreaking to work through. Um, I think the strength is being in the boat together. Like you have someone there to help you work through it. The hard part is if they're the one that caused it and they also have to help you heal from it, like that can feel really vulnerable.
I was going to ask the next question then is, when you do have couples who have gone through a traumatic issue like that, do you feel that some people are staying together because they have the responsibility of their children, or maybe they are so close with each other's family that they feel like I'm so far into it. Maybe we are 10 years married, 20 years married. I can't turn back now, so they just stick it out?
Couples stay together for all sorts of reasons, from all the ones that you mentioned to stability to values. There's a lot of reasons why couples stay together. None of those are bad reasons to stay together. They're just probably not going to lead you to the best relationship unless you're also willing to work on the relationship itself.
Right. And you've had so many people over the past 20 plus years in doing this and your research, what is something that you have discovered that you feel like would be impactful for people to know?
Mm, hmm. Something that I haven't shared, huh? I mean, looking at this, so probably one of the most impactful things that couples can do that they don't think about, or I don't hear talked about very much, is finding a neutral framing of the problem. So we usually say, you forgot to take out the trash. Why didn't you take out the trash? Why'd you forget? And finding a neutral framing of that then makes it a joint problem. Like it's my problem and it's your problem. And it kind of opens up a conversation rather than it being about blame. So maybe a neutral framing would be, we're having trouble getting the trash out of the house. Can we sit down and talk about what are our options to get this done? And yes, it's okay to acknowledge that you had a plan, the partner was going to take it out, but also for whatever reason, that plan's not working. And so being able to keep that in that neutral space then makes it a problem that's much easier to solve. It also helps couples be more creative because maybe the solution is that our kid does it. Maybe the solution is that, you have someone who comes in and cleans and they also take the trash out. Maybe it is that you don't have a trash can in the kitchen and instead you walk outside and put it in the trash can outside. Now, of course, that sounds ridiculous, but there is probably a couple out there who'd be like, you know what? That was the only way we could solve this. It stopped us from arguing about it and we got more exercise. And so it worked all around. Like, so it's to look for something that maybe you wouldn't have thought of before.
Well, and I like that you changed the terminology from a you to a we.
Yes.
When we look at it that way, and we are both taking responsibility, even if we have divided up the household chores to you taking out the trash and me doing the dishes, when we say it, it does break down a barrier of pointing fingers and being what could be perceived as hostile at the time. So I love that you changed up, the wording and the presentation. I think that goes back to the communication styles that we're talking about. How can we approach our partner with a little bit more grace and understanding and just overall kindness? So,
Another one of the Gottman's research findings is that just how you start the conversation can determine if it's going to tank or if it's going to have the possibility of being a good one. So you can start with a soft startup or you can start with a harsh startup. A harsh startup is jumping into a criticism, or pointing out someone's flaw, or complaining about how they're handling it. And a soft startup is just to like start from a calm place, start from a neutral framing of it. Now, a soft startup doesn't guarantee you're going to get to the end, but a harsh startup, that will tank your conversation like 96% of the time. So, like, there aren't that many things that are more guaranteed than starting harshly will end up in an argument.
that's some good advice for sure, I think. And it's not even something that is so over the top to have to change. It's just those little behavior changes that we have to make. A better communication, maybe a little bit calmer in the way that we have that approach, and a softer approach can really make all the difference.
And maybe it's not an issue of waiting till you're calm. Maybe it's an issue of talking about problems more frequently. Most couples, they don't want to argue. They don't want to argue. So they wait to talk about it, and they'll bite their tongue and they'll kind of let it slide, and then they'll say, it's been 5 times that you didn't get the trash out, and now it's going to stink in here for 2 days. Like, waiting until you're already upset about something, you're probably going to get right into that harsh startup. So, maybe the solution is like checking in every day. Is our plan working? Instead of waiting until you're frustrated and agitated.
What about going to bed angry? What
Uh,
is your outlook on
Sorry, did I roll my eyes? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to let that come out. Going to bed angry. I think this is one of the most uh, misunderstood pieces of relationship advice. The advice is don't go to bed angry. Okay, so most couples translate that to they need to keep talking about the problem until they solve it so that they can go to bed without feeling angry.
Yep.
And this is a setup. They end up talking later and later into the evening, sacrificing their sleep. Um, when you're tired, the part of your brain that can problem solve goes offline. The part of your brain that can say, oh, this might have some consequences to it, that's turned off. So it's not functional to say we need to keep talking about this until we get to a good space. What is functional is saying we need something to remind us that whatever we're arguing about does not define our relationship. So, some way of saying, all right, we're not going to solve this tonight, but remember, we're on the same team. We're okay. We can still take care of each other and love each other without solving this problem tonight. And then having that connection that says, we're going to figure this out. We're going to be okay. And that's what not going to sleep angry looks like, not arguing until 3 a.m.
And that's I mean, that is so life-changing though in that bit of advice because it is something that everybody stresses when you get married. I remember on our wedding day, everybody said, "Don't go to bed angry, never go to bed angry, never go to bed mad at your spouse." And that's just not reality. But I love that you said this doesn't define us. And we can come back. We can circle back around at another time. And how much ease does that put your mind at? Even if you are the most frustrated person in the world in that moment, that at least allows you permission for both of you to go, okay, we're going to pause. We'll come back to it. But we both have to value our sleep and our health and mental well-being for that matter. But I think you're so right. It does. It opens up the door in that little phrase that people take it and then they just want to scream, fight, argue until 2, 3 in the morning, and they're
You don't
exhausted,
you don't
thinking
get
brains
better at
off.
you don't get better at solving it the later you stay up. Like, you just
No.
don't. But one of the expectations that goes with that is this idea that you can have one and done conversations. You have a problem, you talk about it, you talk it through, you get to a solution, we're done. And most problems are far more complex than that. You need to talk about it, get as far as you can, put it down, take a break, process it, maybe do some research, think about it, pick it back up, talk about it some more. Maybe come up with an idea to try it, put it down, try that idea, think about it some more, pick it back up. Did our solution work? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, maybe we have to try something else. And that expectation that conversations are going to be one and done really sets couples up for this kind of arguing where they're like, we are like so angry, we can't communicate, but we need to keep pushing through so that we can get to that resolution. And that's not the way problems are solved.
Yes, and then you have knee-jerk reactors who are so emotional, take in consideration maybe they're working 50 hours, maybe they are not working. Maybe the spouse is the only one working. They have a child with special needs and all of these emotions and issues that are just lying there on the surface. And then one big blow up, and you feel like you have to get it all out. We have to do
Right.
this now. We only have an hour to ourselves a day. So this has to be it.
We
Oh,
only
I
have
think
1 hour, so now we're going to solve 5 complex problems all at once.
yes, because we didn't communicate about the trash for the last 5 nights. So I've blown up at you because I'm tired and emotionally exhausted. You don't kiss me when you walk in the door. And all of the things just start to pile up, but I can see it. I can see it. I hear it in conversations. I have struggled. We have struggled as a family ourselves. And it just, I love that. And I'm going to keep going back to that. And I think that you should keep going back to that with families because of that simple phrase of don't go to bed angry is so misused, not understood. And just absolutely, that alone was just mind blowing. We don't have to solve this right now. We still love each other. We still care for each other. We're going to be respectful, but we're going to go to bed and get our sleep. It's so impactful. But little things like that, I believe so much in therapy and counseling. And our organization really believes that therapy and counseling is the backbone to learning these tools, techniques that we have to be able to stay grounded through the chaos of everyday life, but especially when we are a partnership raising a family or a child with special needs, we have to have that grounding with each other. So you've given me so much good information. I want to talk more about that research that you were saying before with couples and their different ways of thinking.
Yeah. I was working on my dissertation and I was creating a sex therapy workbook for neurodiverse couples. And I had this realization. What I realized is that I have never worked with a couple who is not neurodiverse. Not because one partner is neurodiverse or both partners are, but because the core idea of neurodiversity is that the brain operates different than what's considered typical. When I was looking at the different characteristics like executive functioning and sensory sensitivities and processing speed and I don't know, communication styles and all these different things. What occurred to me is I never have two partners who think the same. They always think differently from each other. One might be a better planner, one might be better at fun, one might need to talk about things right now, one might need to think about it for a while. Like, no matter what factor I looked at, every couple has these differences between the two of them. And neurodiverse couples therapy is about bridging those differences and finding the solutions in how to live together with these differences. And that's where I put kind of put two and two together and I was like, oh, all couples therapy is doing the same thing. It's bridging these two differences. And so every couple is neurodiverse, not because they have a neurodiversity, but because each partner thinks differently. They experience the world differently. They have different ways of thinking through problems. And that those differences are a strength because your partner brings a different part of the conversation to the problem than what you can see alone. So while it makes this hard, I mean, it's hard to live with someone else who thinks completely differently than you do, but it also, there's some real strength in that as well.
Oh, I love that. I love that it can be such a broad spectrum in the way that we love and the way that we communicate and the way that we show emotion. The fact that couples go through different types of trauma, or maybe the individual has gone through a certain type of trauma that makes them react differently, knee jerk reactions that happen. all of the emotions, I think you were right. Everybody just loves incredibly different. And yeah, I could absolutely see that for sure. Because of neurodiversity being such a broad spectrum, not just not just in our community and the autism community, you you do have ADHD and different brains thinking differently, like you said, but I think that's a perfect analogy for the way
Yeah.
that we all love and connect so differently.
And one of the things that is different from neurotypical couples to neurodiverse couples is that neurotypical couples have expected problems. Like the differences between how stereotypically a male brain works compared to a female brain. Like there are some patterns there that they're certainly not universal, but there's some patterns there. There's just a lot more support in the broader world for navigating those differences because they're expected. And so with a neurodiverse couple, you can have a lot of unexpected differences that there isn't much support for, and maybe even other people can't see or don't understand.
So, what is next for you?
I am in the middle of reorganizing my businesses because I want to create a platform that supports long-term couples and having really good relationships. And that's, couples who tend to get along, but really want to make sure that they grow together, all the way to couples who are facing a crisis and need to solve that. And so I'm working on some courses and programs, as well as therapy. And my latest project has been to make more workbooks for couples. So I have 4 workbooks that are on Amazon, and I have ideas for like 20 more. It'll take me some time to get through them,
Jeez.
but I really love this idea of taking one small problem, one small crisis, and then putting together a workbook where a couple can work from the beginning of the problem to the end of the problem. And at the end, they will have solved it. Now, the neurodiverse couples sex therapy workbook is a much more comprehensive and goes through communication and problem solving and how to kind of design a life together, how to be intimate together. Whereas some of my other ones are like this one little problem. How do we solve this one little problem? And then take you through the whole thing. So
That's
those are what my
awesome.
projects are right now.
That is exciting. How can people connect with you further?
All right. For therapy, I my website is couplescounselingcenter.online. And you can find me in all the other places through there. I am also on social media, um, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest. I don't know, all the places. I'm in a bunch of different places as well.
Well, I'm sure we're going to have a lot of listeners that want to connect with you. So I will make sure to list all of your tags and the links below on our webpage so that they can connect with you further, as well as your books on Amazon. That will be incredibly helpful.
Thank
This
you.
has been a great eye opening conversation today. Thank you so much for the work that you are doing, not just in the couples community, but for the neurodiverse community. I think it is so impactful, so important, so needed, and not talked enough about, and how unique you are. I was so excited when you were able to come into our group and host the listening room session, which is one of our counseling and therapy programs in our organization, because it has been so impactful. And I just know that you're going to continue doing a lot of great work. So thank you for being here, and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been delightful to talk to you. If people have questions, just send them to me, because I like being able to just help people find the right resource and the right opportunity for them. So thank you for having me here to do that.
Absolutely. Thank Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like and follow and subscribe so you never miss an episode. To learn more about our mission, the work we're doing, and upcoming events, you can visit our website at unpuzzledparentsconnect.com, or you can follow us on Facebook at Unpuzzled Parents Connect. Your support makes a difference. Consider making a donation to help us empower families and build community. Until next time, stay positive, stay connected, and stay unpuzzled.